assistance, I will call the meeting to order. Jane, do you want to do, or whoever's doing roll? I don't know who's doing roll call.
Yep, I'll do it. Karen St. John.
Yeah, I'm not here. I'm here.
Jackie Yenna.
Here.
Alex Crowley.
Here.
Kate Rosenbarger.
Here.
Mary Morgan.
Here.
Paul Ash.
Here.
And then Larry, do I need to call people who are not here?
Go ahead and go through the whole roll, and then we can just indicate
Okay.
that they're not here.
Tracy Gates is absent. Scott Wright is absent and will try to join us later. And I think that's everybody.
Okay, great, thank you. We have a really full agenda today, and I would love to be able to not take up so much of the board's time. So I'm going to really try and get us through this without eliminating the opportunity for people to contribute their thoughts and for our guests to do their presentation. But just to let everyone know, we're going to be lucky to get this done in an hour. I think we can do it. I have faith in all of us. So please keep that in mind when you are presenting or whatever we're doing. And I'll try and watch the time too, and I'll do my best to get us done in an hour. So with that said, we will zip into the approval of minutes. We have both February and March minutes because we didn't have minutes last month. So Jane and staff have done a really good job getting those ready for us. Does anyone have any comments or edits for the minutes?
I move to approve the February and March minutes. Second.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the February and March minutes and a second. So we can take a roll vote on that, please.
Sure, I'll call roll. Karen St. John.
Yes?
Jackie Yenna.
Yes.
Alex Crowley.
Yes.
Kate Rosenbarger.
Yes.
Mary Morgan.
Yes.
Paul Ash.
Yes.
And welcome Tracy Gates.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hi, Tracy. Thank you. We're glad you joined us. So the approval of the minutes passed unanimously. Thanks, Jane. Moving on to the financial report. As you all recall, we did not have a financial report last month due to unfortunate circumstances. And so we are here in April with the March balance sheet and income statement. And thank you to staff for pulling that together for us. Do you want to, are you doing that presentation, Jane?
Yes, and I'm looking at the new financials and they only include March. So we still need to go over February. So why don't I talk about February, but we'll only approve March today.
Okay.
Is that okay? So February didn't see a lot of activity. There was a large Aiez membership refund. So that's the fee that we pay to the Aiez. Our member businesses pay to the Aiez. Aiez keeps what they need and not what they don't. So they refunded over $18,000 to the BUEA, which is then ours to use. We are not obligated to return that to businesses. So that was the main activity in February. And then looking at March, we have received just one zone membership fee that doesn't have an RDC component. So that's what that 5,000 is. For expenditures, grants miscellaneous is $1,000 to the Dimension Mill for the Day Pass program. And then the 24,000 in Recover Forward grants. Those are arts grants that have been funded. And some of you may have seen on social media some of Sean's activity. There's a lot coming and going. So he just launched a new round. So total expense of 25,000. And net income of minus 19,613. So that's our zone membership fees minus the 25,000 that we've paid out. And happy to take questions. Please just stop me as we're going. Balance sheet. Do you all want me to, Karen, should I just read totals and walk us through?
Yeah, I mean, the people can see there, we have $2 million in assets, basically in checking accounts at different banks. I think that's sufficient.
Okay.
the-
And then this details notes receivable. Total is 331,430. We had, most of this is the rapid response fund. Some has been deployed and some has come back. So I will note that I just wrote the It's Your Business column for the HT and mentioned the fact that the loan fund is still alive and well. We have had a few applications in the last month, none that needed the BUEA funding, but it is great that it's there for businesses who can't access the other funding options. So total notes receivable 331, total assets $2,375,202. Accounts payable, that I believe is the RDC payment, and I'm not sure if that's the 2020 that's entered or if that's what we're anticipating for 2021. I'll have to talk to Jeff about that. He's been very busy, so I apologize. But that's correct, as we have ironed out all of our payables and receivables.
Okay, so you think that's the RDC amount?
Yeah,
Okay.
but I can report on that next time.
I know Jeff is picking this up in the interim, and we really appreciate that. What he could do probably for next month on the accounts payables, actually put what it is there. I know, Jane, you're working towards that to have way more detail listed there, so that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then total liabilities and equity, 2.375 million. Sorry, I don't know how much to go over with everyone. I'll try to increase the screen. And then this is kind of just relating to our budgeted funding. So you can see in the gray column, it's what we approved for the 2021 budget. The committed column, that's what we, grant agreements that we've signed, regardless of whether we've paid them out. So you'll see we have committed, a fair number, but not a ton. Obviously, the Cook Center, we put that in our budget. We'll talk to Steve about that today. Unspecified grants, that is the diversity, equity, and inclusion category. We had approved a budget of 5,000, and then in January we bumped that up to 15. So since we only budgeted 5, I left it there. And then the bulk of the activity has been in rapid response grant making, emergency arts grants. So we're cruising along. We've got some activity, which is exciting.
Thank you, Jane. Are there any
yeah.
questions for Jane or comments about the financial report from the board? Or a motion to approve the financials as submitted?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. We have motion and a second to approve the financials. If we want to go ahead and take a roll, please, on the vote, Jane?
Sure. Karen St. John,
Yes?
Jackie Enna,
Yes.
Alex Crowley,
Yes.
Kate Rosenbarger,
Yes.
Mary Morgan,
Yes.
Paul Ash,
Yes.
and Tracy Gates.
Yes.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you. Jane, do you have a director's report or do we want to just move into new business?
I can keep it really short and sweet. I just wanted to add that we are moving through Aiez. We've had more income coming in. Wanted to thank Brittany for all her work on our social media accounts. I think it's been really exciting to see that live and out in the world. Wanted to update the signature cards status. We've gotten all of those updated, but for IUCU, I guess Karen, Mary, and Alex, you're welcome to go in person. I can follow up on that separately. I'll just acknowledge for the meeting that that's in process. And then I wanted to tell the board that MCCSE sent a really nice thank you note about our STEM to Them mobile lab support, which is live, and it's really exciting to see that out in the world. Yeah, so I think that's it for the director's report.
Yeah, I think there was some nice coverage in the HT on the ribbon cutting for the STEM to Them. So it's really great. Jane, thanks for representing us at that. We really appreciate it. So if we want to go ahead and move on to the new business items, the historic facade grants, they are just I know Jane's going to do this. We're going to kind of look at these guidelines real quick because we had talked about that at the last meeting where there were some questions about our guidelines, and then we actually do need to address the overlook and a new application, which is from the Dimension Mill. So take it away, Jane.
Yeah, so we had hoped to present new guidelines, but actually wanted to slow the process down a little bit and talk to the board about what the old guidelines do and what actually needs to be updated. We had a question with the overlook about the number of facades that are allowable and how to approach that grant. So I think what I'm doing today is just sharing these guidelines with the board as an FYI before we look at approving the MOU for the overlook and approving a grant application for the mill, just to make sure that we're all operating from the same set of assumptions. And then next month, Connor and I will come back with formal recommendations for updates. I think the key factors are under eligibility. We present proposals to the board because there's a requirement that the applicant must participate in BUEA zone incentives. Because we aren't really approving new EZIDs within the TIF, that means it's been difficult to get new EZIDs. And so the board reviews every single application. And I don't see a problem with that. I'm just saying that's why we bring applications to the board. The program details currently allow a single grant application of up to $10,000 with a 2 grant or 2 facade limit. It allows $500 in related design and engineering expenses and an exclamatory remark about not using these funds for indirect costs like shipping. So that seems pretty clear. The use is for, facade rehabilitation or stabilization and other costs relating to the requirement of various building codes. So actually, I think there's a fair amount of wiggle room within those 3 categories. So it's either facade rehabilitation, facade stabilization, or something related to upholding building codes or meeting building codes. Any questions relating to these guidelines?
I guess not hearing any from other folks. I just have one quick question. So we're facade is a side of a building. I think it's traditionally maybe the primary side. So it just to confirm, that that's true and that we can give a grant for one facade for $10,000. And we can give a second grant for a second facade for $10,000 as I read this here.
Mhm.
In addition to costs relating to the requirement of various building codes. Is that true? Is that how you understand that, Jane?
Yeah, and Larry can weigh in, but this is at the discretion of the board, actually, how we define facade in terms of these guidelines is pretty important. But a facade is just the face of a building. And typically, like the Webster's definition is that typically it's street facing. So we can have our guidelines say we only support grants for street facing facades, or we can say we don't care whether it's street facing. We just will support a grant that addresses the face of a building.
Does anyone have any comments or thoughts about that? I guess just reading the description, it says that it's used to protect the uniqueness of Bloomington by preserving and rehabilitating historic downtown environment and maintaining structurally sound places of businesses. So it may be hard to say that only the front of a building is important to keep it structurally
Yeah.
sound. I don't know. Any comments from the board or thoughts?
I agree that, yeah, I don't think we should limit it to the street facing facade. I think any side of the building would be eligible,
Great.
should be.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Mary.
I would agree
And
with that too.
thank you, Tracy. Anyone else have comments or thoughts? Okay,
Great. So we'll come back with recommendations that you will vote and approve on next month.
great, thank
Um,
you.
Yeah, and then if it's okay with you, I'll move on to the overlook agreement.
Uh-huh.
So the board approved this grant at the last meeting, and today we're presenting the actual MOU for approval, which is one step beyond what we normally approve. But because we're funding this upfront, I think we felt like it would be good to get the board's approval. So if you look at, and I'll scroll down, page 1, item 2, activities to be performed by the BUEA. We'll fund 50% of the rehabilitation budget, up to $10,000. And we'll release 90% of the funds immediately and the remaining 10% upon completion of the project. So this was a $12,000 grant. So 90% of that would be $5,400 is what we anticipate to pay upfront. And so I just want to point that out. And then I don't know, Larry, if there's anything else we need to look at. Project completion is by the end of this year. And then there are some standard terms under section 3. It spells out the activities to be performed by the grantee. I'll scroll down to that section. Restoration of existing facade on entire north elevation, east facing wall, west elevation, repair of subsiding, structural repairs. So this is a great project. This just spells out the scope of work that we will be supporting. Any questions about this agreement?
I have a question. So, and Jane, I'm sorry, I think you mentioned this, I just didn't catch it. We don't typically approve the MOUs. Is that what you said?
Not normally. I mean, the way these have worked since I've been involved with the BUEA is that they are either reimbursement or direct payment to the contractor after the fact. The guidelines do not specify how the payment should take place, or whether it's in advance. I think we usually detail that in the MOU, but as long as I've been involved, they've been paid out after the work is completed. And I think And Connor may not be here because he is having a baby any moment, or just his wife just had one. So we will wish him well and excuse his absence happily today. But I think the reason it's structured this way is because the overlook is, such a low to the ground operation. They're operating under the Center for Sustainability. They're a neighborhood center. They just don't have a lot of resources. And so they actually need the cash in order to complete the work.
Yeah, I was trying to clarify that. I
Yeah.
would say we don't typically, I agree that we don't need to see the MOUs
Yeah.
for these kind of things. So thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Mary. And I think to Jane's good point, this one seems special because we really should approve that we're paying it up front. And I know you were stating that, but I wouldn't expect that we would get these MOUs like this, but we should. So when we did the vote at the last meeting, we approved this grant and we approved it to pay it up front. Is that right, Jane?
Yeah.
Okay, so we don't actually need to take any kind of vote here.
Well, I don't
think
know
that's
that-
actually accurate. I'm sorry. Excuse me.
Yeah, I don't.
I think we
So
do need to
it
take
was
a
a-
vote. We didn't
You do
approve
need
up
to
front.
Yeah, it was not decided. It wasn't discussed in the previous meeting whether you'd pay up front. So because that was a specific request, a specific change, this needs to be specifically approved.
Great, cool, great, perfect. Okay, so we will be approving this grant, and to note that it is unusual because we are paying it up front, just to be clear about that. So if someone makes a motion, we need to sort of wrap all that up into it, if anyone is so inclined. Or
Move
has-
to,
Okay, so move to approve as
Second.
presented, and second from Jackie. Okay,
Okay.
Jane,
I'll call roll.
thanks.
Karen,
Yes,
Jackie,
Yes,
Alex,
yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
and Tracy.
Yes.
Thank you.
great.
Okay, great.
Okay, that's approved unanimously. And if we want to move on to the second historic facade grant application from the mill.
Yep. And Melissa Ward is here today from the mill. If anyone has questions that we'd like to ask, I'll go ahead and walk us through their application, maybe in the interest of time. So the mill is a,
Jane, sorry, do you want to scroll your screen down to where it is in the
Sorry.
packet? Yep,
of
that's good.
course,
Thanks.
the mill is a nonprofit center for startups and entrepreneurship. They're located in the Dimension Mill, which is part of the Showers Brothers Furniture Factory. The city helped rehabilitate this building for the opening of the mill in 2018. And as part of the lease agreement, the mill is responsible for maintaining the structure of the building. So, and then because it's historic, they're also responsible for getting approval from historic preservation for any work that they're going to have done. So they have that approval from Connor to use this contractor for tuck pointing. There's tuck pointing on the north facade of the building. Sorry, I'm still scrolling through the overlook.
It's on page 21.
Okay, here we go. And it's a relatively small repair coming in at $1,875. The contractor is his own business, Golden Hands Restoration. The city is supporting part of this repair. The city is supporting 25% of the repair costs. So the city is contributing $468.75. The mill is requesting half of that total $1,875 costs. So the mill is requesting $937.50 from the Historic Facade Grant Program. And then the mill will be contributing $468.75 in cash directly. So there's the half from the Historic Facade Grant would be $937.50. And then the other half is split between the mill and the city. So this one's a little strange for that reason, but yeah, I just wanted to be clear about that.
I think, Jane,
Um,
that's listed on the next page. If you scroll down just a little bit, there's a section there where people can see the actual total of the 1875 and then the two splits there.
So this seems like the project itself seems pretty straightforward. This is integral work for the protection of the structure of the building. The split is there. Are there any questions about this project?
Sorry, just one more thing. If you scroll down, they submitted a photo if people want to see the actual places where it will be done on the building. There we go. Thank you.
Yep.
So not major repair, but critical for the historic structure.
Yeah. And as a nonprofit, the mill is doing its work to try to seek what funding it has access to. So that makes a lot of sense to me.
Are there any questions from the board about this or comments? No.
Move to approve?
Okay.
Okay,
Second.
a motion and a second to approve. Before we take the roll, I will once again state, as I did previously, I am on the mill, the board of directors of the mill. And I believe Larry asked me last time if I could remain impartial, and I said, yes, I could. And I still maintain that I can be impartial here. So if that's acceptable, I will go ahead and vote.
Is that okay, Larry?
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Okay, great. I'll call the roll. Karen St. John,
Yes.
Jackie Enna,
Yes.
Alex Crowley,
Yes.
Kate Rosenbarger,
Yes.
Mary Morgan,
Yes.
Paul Ash,
Yes.
and Tracy Gates.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we are halfway through our time and we are in a great spot in the agenda. So good job, everyone. I think we are ready to move on to the SBDC report. And I believe Mr. Bryant is here. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I would also just frame Steve's report by saying he's making two moves today. One, he's reporting out on the 2020 grant to talk about the many things that the SBDC and the Cook Center have done. And then he is bringing to us a new proposal for 2021. And I also wanted to add to that my thanks to Steve and everyone at the SBDC and the Cook Center. It has been a wild year for small business support. We have been deeply involved with SBDC, Cook Center, and the mill. And the answer from the Cook Center and SBDC is always yes. They've been so great, and they've been working around the clock for small businesses. So thanks, Steve.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Steve.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you all of you for the support over the years. I don't have to say much about what last year meant to a lot of small businesses with a shutdown of businesses for months at a time and weeks beyond that of reduced activity because people couldn't walk into businesses. So we kind of pivoted, like most of you, to trying to figure out what we can do to help with all the various stimulus programs from the Fed that came out in April, May, June, and throughout the rest of the year. I couldn't tell you the number of inquiries we got from businesses across all of Indiana that we see, but certainly within Bloomington and the enterprise zone, it's probably tripled in a year. And I'm not even counting all the just calls I took or on Zooms answering questions, but we probably tripled our client flow last year in terms of answering inquiries and trying to get information out quite a bit. We partnered with Mary in the chamber quite a bit. I mean, probably every week we were putting something in their newsletter, on the next thing that was happening from the state or the federal government. So the good news, and that I think most of you have wandered around town here lately, hopefully because vaccines have allowed you to move a little bit more, but people are still hanging on. I would say the businesses that we've dealt with the different stimulus programs, the city's Recover Forward initiatives that the BUEA helped with, obviously with quite a bit of that. The state's Restart Grant, the Paycheck Protection Program, the disaster loan, the different other grants from the county that were there for small businesses. They've just kept people afloat enough to get to this point, and try to keep going as things hopefully open back up and restrictions are eventually lifted to get somewhat back to normal. So, we had a whole lot of things planned last year particularly on the Cook Center side to do things with students and programming and things that require events and workshops in person, and a lot of those didn't happen. So we partnered with the chamber on their 3-week slew of COVID webinars and several other chambers of commerce and economic development groups in the region. We did a handful of our own online webinars on finance and e-commerce topics. We got involved with IU and their HOPE initiative, which took students from the Kelly MSIS program who lost their internships or lost their jobs initially because of COVID, and they were providing free assistance in 2-week sprints to small businesses all across Bloomington and all across Indiana for that matter. And they had 450 projects, and we didn't start talking to them until the end of May about something like this. So it was really nice to see a lot of resources shifted in a different direction. And the good news is we were able to help a lot more businesses that didn't know us. Certainly those that were in the enterprise zone, we spent a lot more time with businesses there, particularly in the food and beverage and retail and to some degree hospitality industries. I don't think there was an industry we didn't touch last year. Some of them, fortunately, were very well benefited by COVID because they're in the right businesses at the right time. So some of them are going great guns, and others are still struggling or didn't make it. But a lot more made it or hanging around than I thought were going to be there at this point. So really, pleased to work with the mill and the city and the county and IU and everybody. We had to all pitch in last year together to make things happen, just because it's what we do. We try to help each other out. So we use most of our personnel essentially just to handle inquiries, push information out fast. And some of them are working on specific projects like our technical assistance program, things of that sort. So we continue to do, the same kinds of things. For those of you who don't really know a lot about what we do, a lot of one-on-one consulting with small businesses that need everything from how to get started to business plans to marketing support. Last year, of course, walking people through what the needs were for the Paycheck Protection Program and disaster loans and state programs and city programs. The good news is you're all asking for the same kinds of stuff. You want, some of your financial information that's updated to show how you were harmed by COVID. The effect on your employment, the effect on, your sales, things of that sort. So you could demonstrate there was a COVID impact. The degree you used PPE or pivoted to do things in your business, like, add UV filters to HVAC systems in your buildings to support, reduce COVID impact.
Steve, I may just keep us moving along. So I think the broad strokes for 2020 are that you had to redirect some of the programming that you had proposed for 2020, but broadly speaking, you supported a much higher number of zone businesses than what
Correct.
we anticipated in the 2020 proposal.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so thank you for that. And then for 2021, maybe I'll scroll down, and do you want to walk us through, if that's okay, Karin?
Yeah. Yep.
To walk us through
not
that?
too much has changed for 2021 in the next proposal. We're still providing, one-on-one support, all of the other services we've always provided through funding through the BUEA and what we do to support our mission, the assistance with business plans, financial, I'll say financial analysis or packaging. We did a lot of business valuations last year. We're going to do more of those this year. We're getting a lot of interest right now for people looking to find out what their business is worth in case they decide they're going to make a change and try to keep the business going with somebody else in charge. We had quite a few of those last year. That's just been on the rise for years. Business education and training, that was something we kind of added new last year, and we were going to do a lot of that in person. And when we couldn't, we decided to support webinars and things that either we were developing or partnering with others that already had them going, like the chamber and different other organizations like the mill, to help with their initiatives. So our plan is to do that again this year. If we can do some of that in person, we will later this year, if it's allowable. If not, we'll continue to do it via via video conference or phone or however we do it. Again, I don't think there's a whole lot of new stuff in there other than keeping keeping to push the programming that we provide, to zone-based businesses, and certainly those around Bloomington and Monroe County are always 80% of what we do throughout the year anyway. So there's a lot of overlap there. We just wrapped up the technical assistance program to the Sbdc, and I think we have about 16 businesses in Bloomington that are receiving funding for that, and most of their vendors are in the mill, which is really good. So the dollars go to those vendors to do the services for businesses that I think probably 8 or 10 of them are zone-based businesses already. So that's really good. So you got probably about $120,000 to $140,000 worth of impact to local businesses. That's just because we know them very well, and the mill knows how to write grant proposals and applications. So really good stuff.
Moving down to the next two sections, those are new programs. Could you talk about those programs and that relationship a little bit?
Yeah, you talking about the mill programs?
Yeah, so we earmarked $30,000 for a cook center in the Sbdc this year. So the next two lines would be a kind of above and beyond our anticipated commitment, but they're obviously really great programs. So
I'll kind of touch on it first, and then I'll let Melissa jump in here since she's, I think, still on the call here. So we've been working with the mill. We're attached to the hip with the mill on virtually everything we do over the last few years, and got us talking, between Ivy Tech and the mill about, helping with the code school initiatives and the new program called Reboot, which is for those coming out of incarceration looking for opportunities to start new businesses. And they just created a new accelerator program to support Reboot. They were kind of coming to us saying, well, how could we help support? I said, well, of course, we're here to help with the counseling and the supporting side of that. Our workforce alignment group and Adam Gross is working with the code school initiative since the beginning with Melissa. And we thought it might be good just to kind of plop us all into one proposal and say, hey, if you're interested in funding additional programming within the mill that benefits zone residents and zone businesses, here's an easy way to do it. And we'll do it under one proposal and not have another organization coming to you for funding. We would just kind of pass through all those dollars to the mill to do those two initiatives, the code school and Reboot. And we would support from our side as we do with the programming to support them. Maybe I'll invite Melissa to add a little bit more on those because she knows more about the details than I do.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you to the city and BUEA and Steve for always wanting to play in the sandbox with us. We love it. I think it's pretty clear we're in lockstep with ISBDC and Cook Center. I think Steve said joined at the hip. The best part is that none of these groups are turfy, right? We're all kind of sharing resources and helping zone residents and any business that comes our way. So we're thrilled to be included here, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I'll give broad overview of these programs in case you're not familiar, just real brief, and then I'm happy to take questions. But in the interest of time, I'll try to zoom out as much as possible. The Mill Code School started in 2020. It was out of the Recover Forward funds from the city. And so we kind of ran fast at the first cohort. We had 40 participants come in. They were trained in software development. We worked with a national accelerator called Generator, and then Ivy Tech was huge help getting us faculty members support and technical support. But these students get the skills they need for to be an entry-level junior software developer. And they work with career coaches and technical coaches throughout the program. And then we work with mock interviewing, trying to get them placed. And so we're still working with those students. They graduated in December. Right now, 40% of the 30 who graduated. I should note that 30 out of 40 stuck with us for 10 weeks. I love giving that number to workforce development because it blows their minds that we would have that kind of retention in a 10-week program. So we're really proud of that. And so far, 40% have gotten full-time jobs, and some of them are right in our building. So Civic Champs hired. We've placed people remotely at Angie's List and Mod Squad, and then at IU and their UITS program. So really great positions. Other people have become, from that program, have become members of the mill, and they're running their freelance business out of ours, including someone who's able to double her client base because of the skills she learned in code school. So we're really excited about that traction. We're still working with people. People are interviewing at Envisage, Future Wonder, Blueprint Stats. These are some mill companies and companies who are connected to the mill. So,
And
we're really
Melissa,
excited.
Just because I know a little bit of detail about the program, I'll highlight that. Okay, so you had 40% placement so far from the first cohort. Beyond that, several or two people have started their own freelance businesses. And
Yep.
then beyond that, the generator is continuing to help with job placement. So the teaching has concluded, but the support has not necessarily concluded for that first cohort.
That
of
support won't go
individuals.
away. So they get continuous support. So I was talking to a a graduate of the program just this week and connecting her with some job openings that have come open in Bloomington. So yeah, that's ongoing. They're never getting kicked out of the support from the program. So we're gearing up for cohort 2. It'll look very, very similar. Ivy Tech is on in a much bigger way than they were before. So they, Adam Gross's team has been just critical to this round. Generator will be there again. We're switching the focus. It won't be software development. We don't want to or oversaturate the market with the skills that we're still trying to hire from cohort 1. So we went to IT administration, and we're excited about that shift. So for this proposal here, the 50 participants, that would be over 2 cohorts over the next for the rest of 2021. So we're looking at 25 to 30 participants in these cohorts. So that's about Code School. I'm happy to jump to Reboot unless there's questions that I can answer about Code School.
I think you can go ahead and to Reboot.
Okay.
Thanks, Melissa.
Reboot. All right, thanks. Reboot is kind of came out of experience that we had with Innovation Week. We run a statewide pitch competition, and one of the women in it won a spot because she was in a re-entry entrepreneurship program based out of Indy. And dude, she was awesome. Like, she was scrappy and she just knocked our socks off. And we looked around Monroe County and thought, who is doing this? Is anyone else training formerly incarcerated folks to run their own businesses? And the answer was nobody. So we went looking for community partners. We paired with New Leaf, New Life, and Courage to Change. And we chatted with Habitat for Humanity as well, just to really understand the population and make sure that the mill was going in with our head on straight on how to do this. So we took referrals only from those groups. We had seven entrepreneurs who joined us in early February. They just graduated, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, maybe. It was a 6-week program. They got to workshop their ideas. They worked with some mentors. Pete Yonkman met with them, as well as other formerly incarcerated startup owners. Cy Minion, our entrepreneur in residence, and just others throughout the community.
Roy Phelps from our group too.
Yes, thank you, and Troy. At the end, they did a pitch night, and so they did this incredible pitch of their program, and the winner won seed money to get her idea off the ground. They all have memberships at the mill for free for the next year, so we're bringing them in the building, getting them into the network, and they're kind of off to the races. So I think it's a game-changing program. I mean, I have some quotes from them, but it's changing their life. And some of these are traditional small businesses. So Steve's group is crucial to helping these new businesses get off the ground. So we're really encouraged by this, and we're excited to do another one in the fall. So this funding would allow us to do that. That $5,000 would support not only the winning seed money, but we need hardware. Lots of these people don't have access to computers. And so the mill, we give them free access to our internet, but we don't have laptops sitting around for them to use. So, anyway, that's Reboot. That's what we're up to there.
Thanks, Melissa and Steve. That's really helpful. Are there any comments or questions from the board about either of these, about this entire funding request? I don't see anyone.
Brian, I have a question. This is probably just a practical thing. Steve, you might be able to answer this, which is by virtue of passing through effectively the BUEA money through your group over to these programs. I think it is important for the BUEA to get its branding out there and make sure that it is recognized as part of the sort of source funding. And so I want to make sure that if we do this pass through as opposed to direct to the beneficiary, that there's some ability for us to maintain that visibility and the source of the funding and get some BUEA branding as part of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think we do a pretty good job of keeping the BUEA logo and name in all of our materials and all of our online stuff that we do on the Cook Center and Sbdc side. We wouldn't expect that would change for this program, since, like I said, we're all partnering to make it happen. So yeah, we would make sure that's prominently displayed and communicated. Good suggestion.
Great, thank you, Steve, and thank you for that suggestion, Alex, and comment. We do always like to get our brand out, so it sounds like in this regard, we would be branded or promoted by both Sbdc, the Cook Center, and the mill at the same time, which is awesome. I had one quick question just about on the mill school and the reboot, the preference to zone residents. So it sounds like for reboot, the 5,000 is used for maybe hardware or whatever, but you're taking 12 participants with a preference. How do you do that with preference to zone residents? How do you operationalize that kind of preference?
So with the code school, that's pretty easy. They have to fill out an application. There's a selection process. And so look at their address and we can look at that. Reboot will be a little trickier in that it's referral based, but that's something we can communicate to New Leaf, New Life, Courage to Change, and Habitat as we're finding our cohort. So I hope that answers your question, but yeah, throughout the application process, that's easy for us.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I was just curious. Any other comments from anyone? So just to clarify, as Jane pointed out, this is $15,000 more than what we budgeted, although we have done that with even just this year, exceeded some of our budgeted amounts for good reasons. So just to note that for the board, that approval would reflect differently on the budget. So I'm really in favor of all of this, but I'll wait for a motion.
I move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the $45,000 funding request from the Ivy Tech Cook Center partnership and South Central Aiez BDC and the mill. So Jane, if you'd like to take a roll on that, please.
Larry and Karen, do we need to note again your role with the Dimension Mill
Yeah,
in this?
it would be the same for me,
Okay.
right? That I'm on the board of the mill and I can be objective,
Okay,
impartial.
great.
Thank you.
Karen St. John,
Yes,
Jackie Yenna,
Yes.
Alex Crowley,
Yes.
Kate Rosenbarger,
Yes.
Mary Morgan,
Yes.
Paul Ash,
Yes.
and Tracy Gates.
Yes.
Thank you.
okay, great. Thank you, Melissa. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Yeah, good luck. And we're really happy you're out there doing this great work. So thank you very much. We look
We
forward to
appreciate
hearing.
the support. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks.
Thank you. This is amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. We have 2 items left and we're closing in on 1 o'clock here. The next one we can go through pretty quickly. It's the Aiez membership agreement, but then we do have bylaws to review. That might take a little longer. So Jane, take it
Yeah.
away.
I'll start with the AIEZ member participation agreement. The AIEZ has been managing the, the AIEZ has been managing the AIEZ since 2017, since the IEDC stepped away, sort of ownership transferred. And so we've been behaving this way since 2017, but this agreement, which was overdue, sort of sets the terms for that behavior. It basically says what we're obligated to pay the AIEZ and what we get in return. So we pay our membership fee, which they often return a significant portion of to us. The AIEZ is not trying to acquire its own assets. It's trying to cover its expenses. So they return what they don't use. And then in exchange, we receive membership benefits. So it's administrative support, which I use regularly. They manage the EZBR registration. They handle state reporting. And then I think item 4, government lobbying and advocacy, has actually been a core benefit. They've been very busy at the State House. And then it says any other future mutually agreed upon services. And we agree to pay our fee. And if we do not pay our fee, that signals forfeiture of our status, which of course we're not interested in. That's it in a nutshell. Are there any questions? Larry, I should also add that Larry was deeply involved with the status of this document. It was generated by AIEZ. Larry did a very thorough review and requested some changes, which they accepted completely. And so Larry supports this document, feels good about us signing it, and can add anything he wishes to. But we do need to have a motion and a vote to approve this agreement today.
Move to approve.
I got a question.
Sure.
How much are the membership fees?
It's a 1% fee. So every business that has an EZID pays 1% of the value of their tax savings to the AIEZ. And that's effectively our participation fee. And then the AIEZ refunds to the BUEA any unused portion of that fee.
Okay, I'll second the motion.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do you want to take the roll?
Yes. Karen St. John,
Yes?
Jackie Anna,
Yes,
Alex Crowley,
Yes.
Kate Rosenbarger,
Yes.
Mary Morgan,
Yes.
Paul Ash,
Yes.
and Tracy Gates.
I think she's muted.
Okay.
Tracy,
well,
do you have?
I think we have enough votes without
Okay,
Tracy,
great.
so I'll just mark hers
Okay.
out.
And then the last item, closing in on 1 o'clock. Good job, everybody. We're getting there, almost done. The next one we've talked about our bylaws and updating those over the last, well, I've lost track of time a little bit with the pandemic. So I'm gonna say over the last 6 months, but it's probably over the last year and a half. So I don't know, Larry, if you're the one presenting this.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be to memorialize some of the things we talked about last time, and there's one update that you should be aware of. So just in short, we're just updating the articles of incorporation and bylaws to reflect a couple of major changes, which is one, the number of directors and what the role is. So there was a director added, so we went from 11 members to 12. And then also just to update some of the code citations in the articles of incorporation and bylaws. Those are tied to the former codification. And so you'll see here, there's some language added to update that code citation, and then also to allow for, I guess, the potential of the Prophet Elijah, which is to say if it gets recodified or gets moved somewhere else, we'll put some language in there just to cover our bases, which our previous articles of incorporation didn't have. What you're seeing here is what is going to be the full text of these sections within the articles. And the reason for that is because the Secretary of State's office has a form that you file to update your articles of incorporation and bylaws, and it requires the full text of the new section to be filed with the Secretary of State. So that's what we've done here. The one change that I'll note is we talked about having incorporating language about electronic meetings into the bylaws specifically. And as I've read, there is a bill progressing through the General Assembly, and it looks like it is going to get fully passed and signed by the governor, which is good news. The requirements of the bill don't require it to be in the Articles of Incorporation and bylaws. What it does require is for us to adopt a policy. So rereading through our bylaws and comparing it with the bill, I think the best course of action for the BUEA is actually not to incorporate that in the bylaws and to have just a policy that's passed by a resolution, which will be introduced at the next meeting pending the passage of the electronic meetings bill. The policy will be on file as in the form of the resolution separately, and that way we don't get hemmed in if there's changes to that electronic meeting statute. So that was removed. So there's no full text of that particular addendum to this. So that's been the change from last month to this month. And then, so next month will be the official approval. The reason why is because under the bylaws, you're required to see this at least 10 days in advance. The specific language of the change is at least 10 days in advance before voting on it. So I wanted you to see it here at this meeting. If there are any suggestions or changes, we can have that discussion about it. And then before you at the May meeting, we'll have a resolution along with the Secretary of State's form and this full text for you to vote on.
Okay, so to summarize, Larry, the only sort of open-ended item is the requirement for electronic meetings, which you recommend we completely remove from our bylaws and have an independent resolution, and then approve these bylaws at the next meeting, which will be of kind of a longer duration as a document anyway.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. And then Karen, you had a question via email about the individual roles of the board, or the owners of the board spots, I guess I should say. So
well, I did on the page, I think that you have highlighted here, maybe scrolling up to the top, although I did want to ask about that number 5. I can't remember, Larry, where we were with the construction worker. I remember that conversation, but I don't remember the details. And it looks like we've added that in here as number 5.
So that's right. That's what was added to be the 12th member. So it's 5 under executive appointment. So some of the other changes in red are just updating the language that was part of these directors, but that is the 12th position that was added in the statute.
Okay.
And so that individual is Jackie, and he was added when we were allowed to add this person. It's just that the bylaws will now reflect the presence of that member.
Okay. And I think, Jane, you were going to kind of let people know where they fell on this list between B and C.
Yeah. And so, Larry, you can correct me as I go through if I'm wrong about any of these, but I think they're correct. So under B, these are mayoral appointments. The representative of the Plan Commission is Karen. The representative of the municipality's department performing economic development is Alex, as our director of ESD. 2 representatives of zone businesses, one of a manufacturing concern, if any exist, are Scott, Wright, and Julie Donham. Is that right, Larry?
That's correct.
Okay. And then 1 resident of the zone mayoral appointment, again, is Paul. And then the representative of organized labor is Jackie Yenna. And then for common council appointments, section C, the member of the municipality's legislative body is Kate. 1 representative of a business is Tracy. And then we're allowed 2 zone residents who must not be members of the same political party. So Mary Morgan is one of those. And then the other spot was Margaret's, and she has not been replaced yet. So that is blank.
Okay, so that's our only opening, and it sounds like that opening, that's the responsibility of the Common Council to appoint that person. So Kate, if you would like to look into that, that would be great, that we do have that 1 appointment left for the Common Council of the city to appoint that needs to be not of the same political party and a resident of the zone.
Right. Okay. And so we ran into well, we didn't really run into issues last time because the woman who left was she libertarian?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And now, I mean, if anyone has recommendations, I would love it if you forwarded them to me. You know, we can look around. It is just difficult to find someone who is not a Democrat.
Okay, so Kate is willing to take recommendations from the board. And I can follow up with, I think Sophia in the council office is the one who handles these applications as they come in. So I can reach out to her and see if there have been any inquiries. Okay.
So if
there's
we have, if anyone has recommendations, they can send them to Jane, who can get them to Kate. And Jane, maybe you could verify that they're a zone resident and work on the political affiliation piece to verify. And then that way, when they get to Kate, they're already cleared and qualify. So that would be great. Thanks to both of you for doing that. So Larry, are we looking for, this was discussed, this wasn't vote, right? This meeting, the vote's the
This is
next
no
meeting?
vote, yeah. This is just for your notice and awareness. The vote will be at the next meeting.
Great, thank you. Are there any other comments or questions about anything presented here? Yes, Mary.
I had a question that is not related specifically to the sections of the bylaws here, but Larry, do you recall if the bylaws dictate our template for an agenda?
I don't believe they dictate any specific template for the agenda. They do.
Okay. I would like to at least raise the possibility of adding public commentary as an agenda item, but we don't have to decide on that or discuss that now. Thank you.
Just to get input from public members, right? I don't know. We could definitely decide if we wanted to make that part of our agenda. I don't know, are we a 501c3, Larry?
You are. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not required.
Not required, right? So we're not, it feels very city government sometimes, these meetings, because of what we're dealing with, and it is tax dollar related, but the money that we get, we are a nonprofit. So just to be clear, I'm not saying we shouldn't take public input, but we're not a public entity. We're not a governmental entity. So that's just something to note.
Yeah, I understand that, and you know, I agree. I think that because it is taxpayer dollars and because it has an affiliation with the city, clearly with city staff and you know, support and I feel like it would be a best practice. Honestly, we can tell we don't have a lot of public coming to our meetings, but I think that having that as an option would be just a good practice. But yeah, we can talk about that later.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I agree with you. We should definitely put some good thought into considering whether we want to add that to the agenda or not. I just want to make sure people weren't confused.
And that is something we could do by resolution as well. So resolution that just says, you know, there will be an opportunity for public comment in any new business item. So that's something we could present for discussion for the next meetings. Okay.
And with that in mind, I know there have been different things along the way that Jane, you've been really great about connecting with the organization of urban enterprise associations to kind of see what their best practice is and how they handle things. So it might be good to look into that and see if anyone else is incorporating that or not and how that's gone for them or why they're doing it or why they're not or whatever. And we could just fold that into, of course, we can do whatever we want, but it's always good on pretty much most of what we do to check in there. It has been helpful. So thank you.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, well, Larry, thank you for your work on this and Jane as well. I think we have gotten to the end of our agenda and it's 1:08. Any other comments for general discussion or for the good of the order?
I move to adjourn.
Okay. We don't really need to vote to adjourn, right, Larry?
That's right.
Right, but I do like, I do like the support, because sometimes I'm just looking at you all in the squares trying to figure out if people are ready to call it. So thank you so much for your time today, for everyone here, and for staff and your good work. Really appreciate it. And the volunteer time of the members of the board. This is really important work. We've had great examples today of how we can impact that through Sbdc and other Facade grants. So that is really exciting to be part of that. So thanks to all of you. And we will see you next month. I forgot what the date is, but Jane is really good at sending it out. So we'll see what that is. when it
May
comes out.
12th, I
May
believe.
12th. Thank you.
Yeah.
We will see you on May 12th. And everyone stay well and enjoy the springtime.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.